Hello, today we are going to do Chapter 9, Lesson 12. So if you want to open up your books to Chapter 9, Lesson 12, in Lesson 11, we did adding of mixed numbers. Today we're going to be looking at subtracting of mixed numbers. You can go ahead and pause your video while you're looking for Chapter 9, Lesson 12 and get to that page. First thing we're going to look at is your Math in My World. We've got example 1. One king crab weighs 2 3/4 pounds. A second king crab weighs 1 1/4 pounds. How much more does the one king crab weigh? Use models to find the difference. So again, we're looking at some modeling, but they also show you an estimation here. 2 3/4, you could round up to 3. 1 1/4, you can round down to 1. And 3 minus 1, as you know, is 2. So as we're looking at the modeling, they would have you lay out 2 3/4 fraction tiles. So it says there's 1 whole and 2 quarter tiles left when you start subtracting. So if you take off one of these and you take off one of the quarter tiles, it's the same as saying, which is 1 2/4. You would have, if you were to cross these off, and let me just put a writing tool up here so you can actually see me crossing these off. So if you were to take this one away and take one of those away, you would see that you have 1 whole left and 2/4 left. That is where this number came from, 1 2/4. And then 1 1/2 came from simplifying the fraction. So they are saying 2 3/4 minus 1 1/4 is equal to 1 1/2. The first king crab weighs 1 1/2 pounds more than the second. And then here is where they're showing you the estimation. They estimated at 2, 1 1/2. It does round up to 2, so it's showing you that you have a reasonable answer there. So let me erase these. And again, if you needed to pause the video, if you were confused with that a little bit, you might want to pause it or rewind it and listen to it again so you can explain or understand the explanation of that. Example 2, notice that we do not have common denominators here. That's important to always be the first thing that you look at. We have 16ths and we have 8ths. Now they did an estimation here. 6 and 11/16 is close to 7. 2 and 5/8 is close to 3. 7 minus 3, as you know, is 4. But before we get started, step number 1 here is to find the least common denominator because we have a 16 and an 8. 16 is the least common denominator. And if you've forgotten how to do least common denominator, you can go back to your flip chart or go back a few lessons and take a look at what you did. 5/8, when you multiply by 2 2s or 2 halves, you're going to end up with 10/16 over here. And don't forget to bring over the 2. So you should end up with bringing over your 2. 2 and 5/8 gets changed into 2 and 10/16. That's creating an equivalent fraction. 5/8 is equivalent to 10/16. Now you can do the subtraction. You can subtract the whole numbers. 6 minus 2. We have 6 minus 2 right here. We know that's 4. 11/16 minus the new 10/16. That came from up here. 11/16 minus 10/16 is 1/16. So your answer is 4 and 1/16. Checking for reasonableness, remember that we said right back here that 7 minus 3 is equal to 4, so you wanted an answer close to 4. We came up with 4 and 1/16, and that's what this slide is showing you, is that 4 and 1/16 is reasonable for that answer. Guided practice. Here we have, notice that these are now written vertically. Whenever we're doing subtraction, or even addition, I encourage you to always rewrite your problems vertically like this, because it's simple now to look at them. 2/3 minus 1/3 is 1/3, and 4 minus 2 is 2. Here we also have the same denominator. Remember, that's the first thing you need to look at. 4/5 minus 2/5 is 3/5, and 5 minus 3 is 2. So if you want to pause the video, work these out, and make sure that you can get to the same answer. As you're looking here, again, the first step is to look and make sure that you have the same denominator. Because if you don't, you have to create those equivalent fractions in order to have the same denominator. Then you can look at, okay, I can do 5/8 minus 3/8, which is 2/8. I can do 3 minus 2 is 1, and come up with an answer of 1 and 2/8. So as we're looking at number 3, look what they did already. They have two different denominators. We have a 4 and we have a 2. Here we have the same denominator, 7 and 7. You can go ahead and start subtracting that one right away. But in number 5, we have a 3 and a 9. So your first step is going to be to first create that common denominator. Well, if you look at 2 and 4, the least common denominator that you can come up with is 4. 2 and 1/2 is equal to 2 and 4/4, or 2 and 2/4, I mean. When you create that equivalent fraction, 1/2 times 2/2, if you think about 1 times 2 is 2, 2 times 2 is 4. Now you have a common denominator. 1/2 is the same as 2/4, so now you can do the subtraction. 3/4 minus 2/4, and you can do 5 minus 2. In this problem, we have 3 and 9. 3 goes nicely into 9, so we don't have to do anything with that first mixed number. But we do need to change this into 5 and 3/9. Notice that I'm saying ninths because that is our least common denominator. 9 is our least common denominator. 3 goes into 9 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9. 1 times 3 is 3. Make sure that you are multiplying your numerators so that you're creating a true equivalent fraction. That's where I see most students make a mistake. They say 1/3 is equal to 1/9. Well, that's not true. You have to multiply your numerators and make sure that you're going, if you're doing 3 times 3 is 9, 1 times 3 is 3. Whatever you're doing to your denominator, whatever you're multiplying by, you also need to do that to your numerator. So take a minute, write these things down, pause the video before you start your independent practice, and get started on this assignment. Again, if you have any questions, be sure to email me and let me know. I would be happy to help you. Take care and have a good day.